Hello, my name is Saleh. My very first video was on how to create a radar chart in Plotly in Python, but I had a comment from someone who asked me to make the same radar chart in matplotlib. So here we go. So our goal is to create this radar chart in matplotlib. Let's take a look at our data file first. Imagine we have 5 continents and then we are going to study the impact of 3 items, cars, trucks, trains, on environmental parameters, parameter 1, 2, 3, up to 9, something like fresh water, air, soil, something like that. I have just made up this data file for illustration purposes. And then, as you can see, I have copied and pasted the first line at the end just to close the line in the radar chart. So practically we are going to have like 10 parameters over here. I have written the code, and then I will go through the code line by line, and then I will upload these codes. I have 3 codes, in fact, in my GitHub, and then you can have access to these codes. So we have a list of continents over here. We specify A, and then we read the desired sheet in the data file, which is an Excel file, and store it in a data frame and then call it df. That's why I have used pandas dot read underline Excel. And we have, as I said before, I have 3 items over here, and then we specify B to have access to this list. Now, in order to read the parameters, like parameter 1, parameter 2, we generate a list of parameters, which is the first column in the data file. When you have df.ilook colon 0, it reads the first column in the data file, in sheet 0, in fact, as stated here. And then it's time to plot. So using plt.subplots, we create a figure and then specify the projection, which is polar, and then specify the size. There is an important point over here. If you had a linear plot or a scatter plot or pie chart or a stem plot or a step plot, you could simply put x.plot, x.scatter, x.pie, x.stem, something like that, because these are attributes for x. But polar is not an attribute for x. That's why we have to specify projection here to be polar, and then we put x.plot over here. Okay, so for 10 parameters that we have put over here, we need to read the values, which was the second column in the data file, which is in fact this column in the data file. So in order to read this column or this column or this column, so I'm going to use this command df.ilook, and the first argument is like all rows b plus 1. B is 0 over here, so it is going to be 1. So it is going to read the column for cars, and then we create a list of that. So we have parameters over here, we have corresponding values, and then we know they all have 10 elements. So for these 10 elements, to be shown in the radar chart, we must have 10 angles. That's why we have the first being 0, the last being 360. Remember, parameter 1 is at 0, and then in the last row, which is like the last point, so it must be 360. And then it must have, so we need to have 10 angles because we have 10 values, because we have 10 parameters over here. So theta is going to be numpy line space from 0 to 360, and then we must have 10 angles. Then we can plot. The first argument is a theta, which must be in radians. The second argument is values, which is the column for cars over here. And then we specify marker size, color. And then for label, it is items 0. So item 0 is going to be cars. So cars is going to be printed as a legend for this trace in this radar chart. And then in order to fill the trace, we use exactly the same arguments, the same color, and then alpha is 1. Alpha is in fact as an indication of intensity. The higher the alpha, the higher the intensity. If you want the intensity to be lower, you can put a lower number. So let's run this and see what we get. You see, this looks good, but it has 3 big problems. Number 1, number of parameters, which was 10, is not the same as number of angular ticks or grids. What do I mean by angular ticks or grids? You know, angular features are features along the circumference of the radar chart. So when I say angular tick, this is angular tick, this is angular tick, this is angular tick, right? So how many angular sticks do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. But you remember I had 10 parameters. In fact, 9 parameters plus parameter 1 again. So which was 10 parameters. So this is one problem. That's why I don't have these points on the spikes, on the radius, right? So this must be fixed. Another problem is that I have an additional margin beyond 1. I don't want to see any margin beyond 1. I want like this radar chart to be from 0 to absolute 1. That's it. And then the next thing is that, you know, like at these points, I would like to see parameter 1, parameter 2, parameter 3, because this is the goal of this whole chart. Because I would like to show the values of parameter 1, parameter 2, parameter, like the impact of cars on parameter 1, parameter 2, parameter 3. So I would like to see parameters 1, 2, 3 like along the circumference of this radar chart. So it has 3 big problems, and I'm going to go and then fix them. The first thing I'm going to use is set underline theta grids or angular grids. You know, in Plotly, in matplotlib, we have different terminology, but you know the actual meaning is the same. The first argument is a theta, because we had this theta is in fact like 10 angles over here, and then we have parameters. We have 10 parameters, and then we have font size, font weight, and then we set R max to be 1. And so let me go ahead and then see what I get. Perfect. Everything is fixed. And then now I have these radial grids. So radial ticks or radial grids. And then I'm going to go and then fix them. I mean, style them. So I have, remember, I had set underline theta grids over here. So I must have set underline R grids over here. So at these points, 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, I would like to see these numbers, and then I want font size to be 6 and then angle to be like 20. So let's go ahead and see what I get. You see, at these points, I have all these numbers printed, and then they are printed at an angle of 20 degrees from this axis. So if I put angle to like angle being 0, it would print everything along this axis. So that is the meaning of angle. But in some cases, you would like to see some words at these locations, at these points. Again, set underline R grids, and then at these locations, print these words, font size, and then angle to be 15. So let's go ahead. So perfect. Everything is nice. So now we would like to have a legend and a title over here. So we have fig.subtitle, and then the text for the title, font size, font weight, and location, and then fig.legend, and then we have properties for the legend and then location. So it prints everything as you have seen, you have already seen. So everything is nice. But what if we wanted to have 3 traces in this chart? So this is the next code I have over here. So the only thing is we need to have a for loop and then update our values and then plot versus theta in one single chart, as you see over here. So you don't have to change anything. You have to only update our values and then plot versus theta on the same chart, which is x in fact. So if I go ahead and then do this, I get this chart. So this is just as easy as I have mentioned. And then, but in some cases you would like to have like 3 subplots, 3 radar charts next to each other, and then each containing only one trace. So I have the code over here. And then for this one, we must change line 10 and then plt.subplots, because I would like to have 1 row, 3 columns, and then projection to be polar, and then horizontal spacing, to have a proper spacing between subplots. So we should have like W space, and then 0.5 works very well for this case. And then the only thing here, the only difference here is that, just like before, we update our values and then we plot these updated R values in its corresponding subplot, because we are going to have 3 subplots. This X is in fact a tuple of 3 subplots, X0, X1, X2. So B in the range of 3, because I have 3 items, is going to be X0, X1, X2. So you update R and then you attach it to the first subplot, and then you update R, attach it to the second one, you update R, and then you attach it to the third subplot. And then let's go ahead and see what I get over here. Now you see we have 3 subplots, 3 radar charts as subplots, and so everything looks nice. So if you have any question or any comment, please let me know. I hope you have enjoyed, and I wish you all the best. Thank you and bye.